listening to The Flame Exchange, a special series on Holy Fire on Wednesdays, where we share heartfelt conversations with people living out their faith in powerful ways. Today, Father Brian Gross joins us from St. Paul's Seminary in St. Paul to talk about seminary formation. Today we are sitting down with Father Brian Gross, former pastor of the Epiphany in Watford City, priest of the Diocese of Bismarck, and now the Director of Pastoral Formation at St. Paul's Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. Welcome, Father Gross.
Father, well, it's great to be here with you. As a heads up for the people, we've known each other since, it's been like 20 years or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
It goes all the way back to Cardinal Mint Seminary in Fargo, North Dakota, which is no longer open, so it goes to show how old we are. Just for our guests, if you could just kind of give us a little background about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been a priest for 14 years, will be 15 years on June 3rd, and my first 2 years of priesthood was at the Cathedral in Bismarck. And then, like you said, 12 years I was in Watford City in Alexander, a little mission parish of Watford City as well in North Dakota. And then the last year, just finishing up, first year at St. Paul Seminary, Director of Pastoral Formation, as you mentioned. And so never in 100 years would I ever thought I would have been back at the seminary, because as priests joke, when you leave the seminary, you never want to go back, right? It's kind of
exactly
sort of a thing, right? But here I am, so yeah.
So maybe for our listeners, if you could kind of just give us a snapshot of what seminary formation looks like, minor, major, as a guy progresses towards the priesthood.
Great, yeah. So there's what is called a minor seminary, or a college seminary is kind of the more appropriate term, and that's basically your first 4 years of seminary. So that could be a guy who comes right out of high school and joins seminary, or doesn't have any college experience at all. Maybe he has a few years off to college. He has to go through a college program, and that's where you would get your degree in philosophy. And then you enter into major seminary, which is your last 4 years of formation. So these are going to be the guys who are older. They would probably be, typically they're in their mid-20s. By the time they get to major seminary. Although we have a guy that's for the Archdiocese of St. Paul, who I'm a formator for. He's 25, and he's going to be ordained. So he went right out of high school, and he's you have to be 25, so he's like one of the youngest guys in the country that's going to be ordained. When it comes to seminary formation, there's 4, we used to call them pillars. We no longer call them pillars, we call them 4 dimensions. And I think the reason we do that is, the 4 dimensions are pastoral, spiritual, intellectual, and human formation. Those are the 4 dimensions. And so the dimensions of formation, they overlap, they work together. Just like you have your psychological life and your spiritual life, you don't just separate those two into separate things, they obviously interact. And so in the seminary, then you have directors of those 4 different dimensions, right? And so I'm the director of the pastoral dimension. The PPF, the Program for Priestly Formation, describes pastoral formation as the culmination of the intellectual, the human, and the spiritual dimensions of formation. Because when you think about what a pastor does, is he takes all of the things that he's gained in those, his prayer life, just who he is as a person, what is it that he knows, and then he applies it to the person that's in front of him, or he's able to give a good homily, or lead a men's retreat or something like that, right? And so the pastoral dimension is really, in a sense, sort of where the rubber meets the road, where the guy is out as a priest and he's using the different tools that he's gained.
You bring up a lot of really interesting points. I think, for a lot of people looking into priestly formation, or just the priesthood in general, probably have never really been exposed to the level of education, the level of formation, the different dimensions that you're talking about. And I think it's good for them to hear that it's not like you show up and just suddenly are ordained, right? There's a whole screening process nowadays to get into the seminary. Minor seminary, there's sort of almost like a microscope on you, making sure, not only from a spiritual standpoint, but also from a human standpoint, that in fact God has called you to this, and the church recognizes that call and also sees in you a man that's able to live, function, minister as a priest of Jesus Christ in the world. So within those dimensions, and that probably could be a whole show unto itself, being that you're the director, not just one of the guys teaching or formating, but the head of that dimension at St. Paul, could you just tell us a little bit about what we mean by pastoral formation?
So one of the things that St. Paul's Seminary has, many seminaries do, is a program where the guys are out in parishes at different points throughout the month. And so we've got 60 guys in major seminary, and those 60 guys are then roughly 60 guys, and then those 60 guys are assigned to 60 different parishes within the area, and they have pastors then that in a sense are mentor them right in those parishes. So I coordinate that program, the seminarians, their conversations with these pastors and how are things going out there. Then I have these what are called teaching parish courses, and so the guys will come back every week, and we have a course where we sit down and sort of talk about what their experience in the parish is like. I'll give they'll have questions for me about the parish. I'll tell them different stories, maybe speak about some different things, whether it's leadership stuff or et cetera, et cetera. And so and then there's a program in the summer that we have for guys who are going. They've finished their first year in major seminary, so Theology 1. There's 4 years of theology. They finished Theology 1, they're going to Theology 2, and so in the summer they're then assigned to the hospital, and so I help coordinate that as well. In addition then to a whole other piece is I'm the formator for 11 guys currently. That's going to increase next year. And so that means I meet with those guys once every 3 weeks, and we talk about how are things going for them, what are some of the things they're working on, how have they improved, what are they excited about, and really just kind of sitting down and really diving into their lives. And then another piece is the formation meetings that all of the formators have every week about the guys, and then of course as the job duty says, and then it says as duties are assigned, right? So it's interesting because one of the things I say is that I'm less stressed than the parish, but I'm way busier than the parish. And so it's a totally different way of being a priest, as you can imagine. Certainly, Father Waltz, not having that sort of day-to-day contact with parishioners, but it's a totally different way of being fulfilled as a priest. And so I'm excited to be.
So I think maybe for those who aren't very familiar with seminary formation, would I be correct in describing it with the analogy of you're in medical school and then you have an internship. So you're sort of the one overseeing the borderline internship of their active experiences being mentored out in the parishes.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. I would say too, an additional piece, and we're just starting on this. This is going to be a year, maybe a 2-year long program, but one of the things that pastoral formation seeks to do is give them tools that they can use in the parish. So whereas spiritual formation is very clear, are you praying? Are you able to take scripture and pray with it, and then maybe give a homily from it or something like that? How's your personal prayer life? Get into confession. Human formation again is just kind of are you able to operate well as a human being? Because you can be really smart, but you shouldn't be a pastor,
Exactly.
And that happens sometimes. So pastoral formation is much more around giving the tools. And so what we're seeking to do now is I'm trying to develop with all conversations with all kind of people, but develop a program where we're teaching the guys who are going to be priests in the future how to disciple people in their parishes. Because I know, Father Justin, you and I, when we were in seminary, we weren't really taught how to disciple anybody.
Correct.
And so that's such an extraordinarily important thing. More and more and more as we, have these conversations about moving from Christendom into apostolic mission and operating within the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and that becoming a more important thing, and it's highlighted more. for parishes and for priests and such. Like, how do we help a guy who's going to be a priest who already is on fire, who does want to do extraordinarily good things? How do we get that guy to have the tools so that he can then go into a parish and gather, say, his 10 most on fire people, and actually train them how to partner with him in seeking to evangelize and grow his parish? And so we're really just kind of starting having that conversation about how to get some of those tools to those guys.
Oh, that's great to hear. It's a really incredible time that we're living in the sense of, you mentioned Christendom. For those of you who have not heard that term before, that was kind of the height of Christianity. The whole world prior to the Reformation was Catholic. The church was heavily integrated into countries, governments, literally people's lives. And then over the last 500 years since the Reformation, we've really seen almost an unevangelization in which secular culture has crept its way in, and pushed the church out. And so evangelization, from a pastoral standpoint, it could be argued that of all the things that a priest is called to do within his priesthood right now, one of the main focal points are men that are well-versed, well-trained, and just, anointed really with the Holy Spirit in an evangelical way. Fulfilling the prophecy, really, of Pope John Paul II when he talked about a new evangelization. We've sort of reached a point where the whole culture is a blank slate. I know from my work in the Air Force, there's so many times when I'm in a deployed situation working with the active Air Force that, especially with the Zoomer generation, but also within the millennial generation, they are neither for nor against. They know who Jesus is, and that's about where it stops. And so when you're able to really connect with somebody and, evangelically share the gospel, not only your personal experience, your personal relationship that you have with the Lord, but also, just a real platform of teaching, that they are all ears. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about, what are you looking for in a guy, kind of through that prism, when you think about sharing the gospel, evangelizing his parish, evangelizing the world really right now? What characteristics are you forming and or looking for in any particular seminarian that is in this formation process?
So you said Zoomers. Well, a lot of these guys are Zoomers, right? So they do understand that generation better than I certainly would. I'm 15 years, 20 years older than that generation. But the guy that comes into the seminary, the personalities, the backgrounds, this is varied as, the backgrounds and personalities of the people that are listening to this podcast. You have the super extroverted, let's go out and get him guy all the time, but you also have the man who wants to do it good, but he might go off to get a doctorate in theology,
Right.
But at the heart of it, the most, no, I don't want to say most important, an extremely important part of seminary formation for a man is, are you willing to be docile? Are you docile? Are you teachable? And are you willing to be vulnerable before God, your formator, and your spiritual director? And if you're not, then then you shouldn't be in the seminary. We talk about, in formation, we talk a lot about, frankly, we would prefer a guy that has 3, 4, 5 things that he's working hard on, than the guy who's just like, I'm perfect. I don't do anything wrong ever.
Right.
We want the guy who, we use this phrase growth edge, where's the guy pushing forward? Where is he looking to receive the grace of God, and where is he looking to be formed? Because that's a man who's revealing himself, right? So the church has a right to know the man completely. This is another thing from the program for priestly formation. The church has a right to completely know the man that she is choosing to be a priest. And so that's maybe the most important part, to get to your question, is is the guy really willing to let himself be completely known.
Yeah, and I think it's important, everyone, for us to understand that you don't just, again, show up at seminary, get accepted, and you're ordained. This is a very long process, as well as, particular. So there are guys that discern out because they've come to the conclusion that they're not called. But on the other end of it, the church is also watching and saying, you may not be called or you may not be suitable for priestly ministry.
Yeah, so another really important piece is it's not just about your intellectual life. In the past, there was something to that where there was a super emphasis on the intellectual life, and obviously that's still really important. If you can't explain
right.
who Jesus is well, or theologically you shouldn't be a priest. But what's happening in these days of formation as we're continuing to grow and get better at it is that we're taking into account the whole of the man, right? And so what might be really surprising to some people is that at St. Paul Seminary, as an example, there are more men in counseling than not.
That's good to hear.
We have four counselors that come in, whether it's half-time all the way up to a guy that's full-time. Paul Ruff, give him a shout-out. He's just an extraordinary psychologist, works in seminary. And when Father Justin, when you and I were in seminary, I don't know if we wouldn't have looked down on somebody who was in counseling, or I don't think we would have looked down on it. But we would have seen it as like, okay, well, there must be something like really serious going on there.
Correct.
Right? That would have been, and I think that can be kind of the perception for some people. Whereas now in seminary, I've heard guys have to explain almost why they're not in counseling. And I don't mean explain like they have to give a reason, but it's like,
why aren't you working on yourself?
Yeah, it's such an expected thing. And guys have such great experiences with it. So whether it's a group that we have called Heart of the Pure Man, right, which is self-explanatory. We have anxiety group. We have one-on-one counseling. Guys have their own individual, like we would call them as priest caritas groups, but groups of 3, 4, 5 guys, and they get together and share their lives with each other. And so the mental health side of things and the human side of things, I think is just continues to get healthier and healthier.
That's great to hear. And just for all those listening right now, this does not, everybody, just apply to guys in formation to be priests. I hope and pray that we're entering into a time where certainly as Christians, we can sit back and accept the fact that we were born into a fallen world, we're in a fallen body, we're living a fallen life. We're redeemed by the Son of God and loved in His unfathomable mercy, but at the same time, no one is perfect. Everyone needs work, and there's nothing to be ashamed about there. So whatever your thing is, the beautiful, holy thing to do is to be honest about that, because the only way that it gets any better is when we're honest, to seek out therapy. The taboo of the yesteryear is disappearing faster and faster as we move forward. And so there's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting help. And your parish priest is a great place to start with that, having been through the formation that we've been through, that we've already worked on ourselves, and therefore are in a place where we're able to help other people get the help or formation, the helping hand that they need. If you could just kind of close in on, where we're at with guys joining the seminary, the quality of guys as we're moving into the church, particularly right now under Pope Leo XIV. I couldn't be more excited about Pope Leo XIV, a pope from America, a tremendous opportunity for evangelization, particularly in the United States. And I don't mean to be the American here, but I really believe if you convert this country, you're going to convert the entire world. What's the climate like with guys joining the seminary, guys in the seminary, and maybe if you could connect that to their reception of the new Pope from America, Leo XIV?
Yeah. Well, I think most of the guys in seminary, I'll start with the Leo question. Most of the guys in seminary grew up with Pope Francis, right? So that's kind of their whole experience of the papacy for the most part, unless they were maybe really taking it seriously even in high school or early high school. But so the experience of guys with Leo XIV is good. I mean, it's a shocking thing, of course, as we know, that a guy from Southside Chicago is our Pope now.
A White Sox fan.
A White Sox fan. Right? It's something that hard for us to wrap our mind, and we can like go talk to his brothers, like who
in English.
In English, right? So they're excited about that. I think that I think the vocations are gonna increase. That would be my sentiment. My thought is that we're gonna get more and more vocations because of this, because of him. And just being able to listen to him in English, as you say. But another piece is about the guys coming in. When a guy applies to the seminary, you have to go through a battery of psychological tests. You have to meet with a psychologist, do all of those sorts of things. Then, your bishop has to ultimately accept you after conversations with vocation directors and maybe vocation director boards, if your diocese does that. And then finally, you come to the seminary and you're interviewed by the acceptance committee, right? And so there's all these different layers that you have to go through. And so by the time you even enter into the seminary, the seminary already knows quite a bit about you. One of the new things that is present in seminary formation, this is just new within the last 5 years, and it's called the propedeutic stage. And so when a guy enters into seminary, the first thing that he does is goes on this propedeutic year. What is that? Just to sum it up very simply, it's a tech fast. So you can't have any technology for that entire, 9 months.
Wow. Everybody, did you just hear that? 9 months with no tech at all.
Right. So, they get their phones for 2 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday.
I suppose just to catch up, make sure there's not an emergency.
Call their mom, return a text, look at their emails. But the majority of the week, they're not on their phones. And it's funny because, and then at least, again, this is St. Paul Seminary itself. Different places do it differently, but we do it the best. And so, so they actually live off site in a different, in an old convent, and there's a priest that lives there, and then 2 of the transitional deacons. The transitional deacons are guys that are going to be ordained priests. They live there, and they're with these propedeutic guys. And every once in a while, the propedeutic house, those men from the propedeutic house, will come to the major seminary. And it's funny because I'll walk up to them and I'll be like, "Hey, how about that basketball game the other night?" And they're like,
"No idea.
I don't know what you're talking about." And you're like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You don't have a clue because you don't have your phones." So what happens in this year then is there's no academics. So they'll do some catechism classes. They'll do some scripture classes. They have, again, group counseling. They have, they call it process groups, where they have to sit around with each other and have real conversations about I don't like you. Every single time you walk into the kitchen, you start whistling, and then you cook eggs, and you never clean the pan, and it's driving me crazy. They can't just sort of hide. They have to actually engage with each other in these conversations.
Personal communication.
And so the guys that come out of the propedeutic year into the major seminary, you can tell that they're more well-rounded. They've dealt with a lot of their stuff. They know exactly how it is that they should grow. They're able to communicate and be friends and brothers in a way that some of the guys who don't go through the propedeutic stage are not able to. It also gives you the opportunity in the first year of the propedeutic stage. It gives you a year so you're really accelerating your discernment as well, because really by the time you get to Theology 1, you should have a pretty strong sense that you're called to the priesthood. Obviously, things can change, but and so the propedeutic stage helps this. So the guys that come in, they know from the very beginning that what they're doing is countercultural. They know from the very beginning that what they're doing is going to require them to be stretched, to go through some serious, some interior suffering and work, and so on and so forth. So, and yeah, they love Jesus. They love Jesus, and and again, me being there and being with them for this first year, it's really been a joy, even just hanging out with them, and they're all so different, and I mean that in a good way. Like they're all so different. They're not just this particular way, or this particular concern for liturgy, or this. It's all within the bounds of orthodoxy. They're all where they are.
Well, that's really good to hear. Thank you for sitting down with me on this Holy Fire podcast as we learn about seminary formation with the Director of St. Paul Seminary in St. Paul, Father Brian Gross. Father Gross, we assure you of our prayers, and prayers for vocations for sure, everyone. Please pray for vocations. Until next time, this is the Holy Fire Podcast, and I'm Father Justin Waltz. Thank you, and God bless you all.